warm welcome, dear students. I hope you enjoyed watching the videos on Contract Act and Partnership Act. That will give you an idea as to what kind of content you will be studying in CA Foundation. What is the syllabus of CA Foundation law? If you're watching my video for the first time, I am CA Preeti Agarwal and I make videos specially for you. Subscribe to your channel Theory Masters Learning and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications for all the demo lectures. For CA books and recorded lectures for CA Foundation and CA Inter, visit my website theorymasterslearning.com. Students, in this video, we are going to discuss something about the Sale of Goods Act 1930. So all the CA Foundation students who wish to know what exactly are we going to study in law, this is the third act that we will be studying. The first act that we discussed was the Contract Act 1872. Then we discussed the Indian Partnership Act 1932. And now we will study the Sale of Goods Act 1930. Okay, so here you will get a fair idea as to what is covered in the Sale of Goods Act 1930. As the word suggests, this act deals with the word sale. What is sale? Here we will be studying what are goods. If there is sale, there will be a buyer, there will be a seller. What are their rights, duties, etc. Now the word sale actually means transfer of ownership. Students, please note that in this act, only and only ownership is important. What I am concerned with is ownership. Who is the owner? Because owner bears the loss, owner bears the risk. At any given point of time, I want to know who is the owner. Delivery of goods, payment of price, that can happen later also. But I want to know who is the owner. So in Sale of Goods Act, we are going to concern ourselves only and only to the owner, to the concept of ownership. At any point, I just want to know who is the owner, because owner bears the loss, owner bears the risk. Let's say, for example, X bought a gold chain from the local jeweler. He paid money, he took the gold chain, and he just stepped out of the showroom. As he walked 2 steps, a biker snatched the bag and went away. X went to the showroom and said, I lost my gold chain outside your shop. I had just purchased the gold chain. Give me my money back. I didn't even wear it. It was just 2 minutes ago that I purchased the chain and it got stolen. It happened outside your store. You give me my money back. Is X entitled to claim his money back from the jeweler? No. As soon as he purchased the jewelry, as soon as the invoice was made in the name of X, he becomes the owner. And because he is the owner, he will bear the loss, he will bear the risk due to theft. Now, in this unit, delivery of goods, payment of price, that's not very important. This is not important because it can happen later also. So let's say, for example, that in this case, he bought the gold chain, but maybe he wanted the length to be reduced. So he kept the chain with the jeweler. Okay. The invoice was made in his name, but the chain was with the jeweler. He had not obtained the delivery. He took the invoice and he said, I will come tomorrow. At night, fire occurred. Everything was destroyed in the showroom. Who will bear the loss? Now you may say, ma'am, the jeweler will bear the loss, but Act says no. Because the invoice was made in the name of X, because our intention was to transfer ownership, he is the owner, he will bear the loss even though he had not obtained delivery of the goods. So it means that the jeweler can ask X to pay the price of the chain. You may be very surprised to hear this. Ma'am, how is it possible? The chain was never delivered to X, but my dear students, for Sale of Goods Act, delivery, payment of price, that is not a consideration. That is not to be considered while determining the ownership. It may happen that he gave part payment and he said, I will pay the remaining when I come to take the delivery of the chain. In this case, payment of price, delivery, that will be kept aside. Invoice is made in your name. Our intention is to transfer ownership. You are the owner. He will have to pay the balance price even though he will not get the chain. So in this case, what is important for us is ownership. How is the sale of goods act? How is the contract of sale defined under the Sale of Goods Act? As per section 4(1) of the Sale of Goods Act 1930, contract of sale is a contract. Now, the essential elements of a contract of sale are hidden in the definition itself. A contract of sale is a contract. It means the first requirement is that all the essential elements of a valid contract must be present. Yes, it is a contract. Let me highlight all the elements first and then we will discuss. It is a contract whereby the seller either transfers or agrees to transfer what? Property in the goods to the buyer for a price. These are the 6 essential elements of a valid contract of sale. The first essential element is that there must be a contract. It's a contract of sale. So all the essential elements of a valid contract must be present. Okay. So it is a contract. Therefore, all the essential elements of a valid contract must be present. All right, so this is the first requirement. Then the second element is that there is a seller. So in a contract, we need two parties. In a contract of sale, those two parties are buyer and seller. So the second requirement is that we need two parties, that is buyer and seller. Okay, they are two separate, distinct parties. Yes, they are separate or distinct parties. So you cannot buy your own goods. You cannot sell the goods to yourself. You need two different parties, one who sells the goods and other who buys the goods. The third essential element of a valid contract of sale is that there is transfer or agreement to transfer what? Property. Property means ownership. Okay, we are transferring what? Ownership. In the entire act, we are only and only concerned with ownership. Who is the owner? Who will bear the loss? Delivery, payment of price, that can happen later also. Now students, there may be either transfer, that is immediate, or agreement to transfer at a future date. So let me write down one small chart for you and you can copy it in your notebook. A contract of sale, okay, we will write this. A contract of sale may be either sale or agreement to sell. What happens in case of sale? In case of sale, the ownership is transferred immediately. Okay? In case of sale, ownership is transferred immediately. Let's say, for example, that X sold a bag of rice to Y. Y paid the money, he took the rice, everything is over. As soon as the sale is done, Y becomes the owner immediately. So this is sale. But what if X shows rice to Y and Y tells him, do you have 100 bags of this rice? Do you have 100 bags? He says, I don't have 100 bags today. But if you come tomorrow, I will arrange for it. Has Y become the owner immediately? No. Y will become the owner at a future date when X gives him 100 bags. He said, you come tomorrow, I will give. I will keep it ready. So Y has not become the owner immediately. He will become the owner at a future date. This is nothing but agreement to sell. So in case of agreement to sell, ownership is transferred at a future date. Or sometimes the ownership may be transferred on fulfillment of certain conditions. So ownership is transferred either at a future date or on fulfillment of certain conditions. Now, what are these? Let's say, for example, that X offers to sell his scooter to Y. Y goes for a test drive and he says everything is okay, but I think that the scooter needs one repairing and servicing. You repair these few parts, you service it, I will buy it. So in this case, the sale is dependent on fulfillment of certain conditions. You repair these two things, you get the scooter serviced, we will buy it. So in this case, has Y become the owner of the scooter immediately? No, he will become the owner at a future date. This is agreement to sell. So what happens in case of sale? In case of sale, the ownership is transferred immediately. But in case of agreement to sell, ownership is agreed to be transferred at a future date or on fulfillment of certain conditions. In case of a contract of sale, it is a contract whereby the seller transfers immediately in case of sale. Yes, very good, students. He transfers it immediately to sale, or he agrees to transfer the property, that is ownership. Agrees to transfer, this is nothing but agreement to sell. So he either transfers or agrees to transfer what? Property, ownership in goods. Now, what are goods? Goods means every kind of movable property. Okay, this is movable property. What is the meaning of the word movable? Movable means you can transport it from one place to another. Like rice, wheat, machinery, computer, mic. Okay, so all this can be transferred, it can be transferred from one place to another. It is movable. Laptops, they are movable. So Sale of Goods Act applies to only movable property, something which can be transported from one place to another. Price, this is the most important element of a valid contract. Let me include all this in our list. The third element was that there is a contract of sale. It can be either sale, transfer immediately, or agreement to transfer. The fourth element is that we need goods. They are in any kind of movable property. And we need price. I have also highlighted one more element, that is property. Property means ownership. Now, price is the most important element according to me. Why? See, if there is no price, it is gift. It's not sale. Okay, I give goods, I get goods in return. That's barter. It's not sale. So for sale, there has to be some element of price. It can happen that, let's say I went to Vijay Sales. I gave my old television set and I got a new television set. The difference I paid in money. Okay, so the difference was paid in money. There is money, there is price. It is a contract of sale. So if I give you goods and I don't get anything in return, that is gift. Okay. If I give you goods and I get goods, that's barter. That's not sale. I give you goods, you give me goods, and balance we settle in cash. Money is involved. That is sale. So what are the elements? There must be a contract. There is a seller. There is a buyer. There is either immediate transfer of property or we agree to transfer property at a future date. Goods. the Sale of Goods Act, it revolves around goods, that is movable property. And we give these goods for a price, money. These are the 6 elements of a valid contract of sale. Okay, we are studying the Sale of Goods Act. So we need to know what are goods. What are the different types of goods? Goods actually mean every kind of movable property. There is a definition, but I'm not going into that now. Otherwise, it will take me an hour just to go through all the factors in that definition. So types are that goods include every kind of movable property. There are different types of goods. We have existing goods, future goods, or contingent goods. Now, what are existing goods? Existing goods are those goods which are in existence at the time of contract of sale. They are already manufactured, already produced, they are already in the possession of the seller. He can transfer ownership immediately. So let's say, for example, that I offer to sell this pen to you and I have 10 units in this. Okay. So all 10 units are kept over here. Do you want to buy this pen? It's existing. It's already made. It's already with the seller. These are existing goods. Ownership can be transferred immediately. In case of existing goods, goods may be further classified into specific goods, unascertained goods, ascertained goods. Now, we discussed existing, that goods are already in existence. They may be specific goods. Specific means that, let's say I went to the car showroom. I had decided in my mind that I want to buy a Honda City car. Okay, I want to buy the same car that my friend has. So I go with a mindset to buy a Honda City car. I know the model number. I have decided everything. I don't want a test drive. I've already driven his car. I just want to know the price. That's it. So I went to the showroom and I said that I want to buy a Honda City car. He said, okay, sir, do you want a test drive? I said, no, I want to buy a Honda City car only. You just tell me the final price. These goods, which are identified, they are agreed upon at the time of contract of sale. Okay, they are agreed upon at the time of, I'm very specifically asking for a particular car. They are specific goods. I went to the shop and I asked for Bonvita. I said, I want a packet of Bonvita, a refill packet, or maybe I asked for a bottle of Bonvita, normal Bonvita. So I am very clear as to what I want. I want to enter into a contract for Bonvita. So I bought Bonvita, that they are specific goods. So goods which are identified, okay, I'll write down the characteristics and the keywords. Goods which are identified and they are agreed upon at the time of contract of sale. They are known as specific goods. Then what are unascertained goods? Unascertained goods are those goods which are not identified. They are not agreed upon at the time of contract of sale. They form part of bulk. Let's say that X buys 100 bags of rice from Y. Okay, so X is the buyer and Y is the seller. Now the seller has 500 bags in his godown. He has 500 bags in his godown. X says, I want 100 bags. He says, okay, I will sell 100 bags to you. There are 500 bags kept in the godown of Y. Now, out of these 500 bags, which bags are to be given to X? That we have not decided. So, as of now, all those 500 bags, they are unascertained goods. Then out of those 500 bags, we identify, select, keep aside 100 bags. They become ascertained goods. So out of the 500 bags, I remove one bag, two bag, three bag, four bag. I identify and keep 100 bags aside. Okay, these are 100 bags. They now become a certain goods. So a certain goods are those goods which are identified, they are agreed upon only after the contract of sale is made. What is the difference between specific goods and a certain goods? Specific goods are those goods which are identified, they are agreed upon at the time of contract of sale. I want these goods. But if the goods are identified after the formation of the contract, then they are ascertained. See, practically speaking, there is not much difference between specific and ascertained goods, because ultimately everything will be removed from the stock of goods. Okay, but all this will be discussed in detail in the video lectures. Yes. So uncertain goods, let me give you one more example. I went to buy 10 college bags. I went to the shop and I asked him for 10 college bags. So he said, ma'am, there is a lot of variety. Let us go to the go down. I said, okay. We went to the go down and he showed me a rack full of college bags. He said, ma'am, choose. Oh God, so many college bags. They are all uncertain goods. Then I identified, please remove this bag, this bag. No, ma'am, don't take that bag. That won't serve your purpose. Okay, then let it be, remove this bag. So the buyer and the seller mutually, okay, they mutually give their consent and remove the goods. They set it aside. That is known as ascertainment. Okay, so ascertainment and appropriation, these are two concepts which we are going to discuss. So they identify, they ascertain, they appropriate, they set it aside. They are ascertained goods. Then we have future goods. Future goods are those goods which are to be manufactured, to be acquired, to be produced by the seller. Okay, so they are to be acquired, to be manufactured after making the contract of sale. Let's say, for example, that a farmer, he agreed to sell the entire crop of corn which he will grow. Okay, he has just sown the seeds now. The crop of corn which he will grow in this field. Now, the goods are not ready. They are not produced at the time of contract of sale. They will be produced for me. They are future goods. Then what are contingent goods? Contingent goods are those goods, the acquisition of which by the seller depends upon uncertain contingencies, means happening or non-happening of some uncertain event. I went to my friend's farm and I saw a mango tree. There were many mangoes on that tree and I asked my friend, I want 200 mangoes. He said, listen, I will be able to sell you 200 mangoes provided there are 200 mangoes on this tree. Now, there may be 200 mangoes, there may not be 200 mangoes. So, these are contingent goods. It depends upon happening or non-happening of an event. I may get 200 mangoes, I may not. Depends whether there are 200 mangoes on that tree. So performance, when it depends, the acquisition, when it depends upon uncertain contingencies, it may or may not happen, then those goods are known as contingent goods. After that, we will discuss conditions and warranties. Now, what is the meaning of condition? Condition means it is a stipulation which is essential to the main purpose of the contract. That is the very reason for me buying that goods. So conditions, they are stipulations which are essential to the main purpose of the contract. That is the very reason why I bought that product. Whereas warranty, they are only collateral to the main purpose of the contract. Now let's say, for example, that I wanted a car for touring purpose. Okay, I want to go on a mountainous region and I went to the showroom. I asked him to show me a car which is suitable for touring purpose. He said, sir, take Nano. Now I thought that he is dealing in these goods since a very long time. He has better knowledge than me. I purchased Nano and I went on the tour. It is not at all suitable for my purpose. The very purpose for which I wanted to buy the car, that is not satisfied. There is breach of condition. The aggrieved party has the right to terminate the contract and claim damages if he suffers damage. So, if the very purpose of me buying the car, what was my purpose of buying the car? For touring purpose. I wanted to go on a mountainous region. Now, the car did not have enough power to take me there. So, in this case, the very purpose of me buying the car was not satisfied. There is breach of condition. I can terminate the contract. I don't want this car. I want my refund. I want the full price that I paid for it. Then what is warranty? It is only collateral. What is the meaning of collateral? Collateral means it is only additional. It is collateral. It is additional to the main purpose of the contract. Breach will not give me the right to terminate the contract, but I can only claim damages. I cannot reject the goods. I cannot terminate the contract. I can only claim damage. Now, let's say that this time when I went to the showroom, he suggested a perfect car. He said, why don't you take Mahindra XUV? I mean, like, okay, this is a car suitable for my purpose. I took the car. It was very nice. It was a good drive. I reached at the top of the mountain. It started snowing. I turned on the heater. The heater did not work. I completed my tour and I returned. Can I go to the shopkeeper and say, take back this car? It's a useless car. The heater is not working. He will say, but I'll get it repaired, no? The main purpose of buying the car was for touring purpose. That was satisfied. Only an additional purpose of heating was not satisfied. You cannot reject the goods. You cannot terminate the contract. But yes, you can very well claim damages. You can ask him to repair the heater and give it to you, to replace that part. But you cannot reject the car because your main purpose could be satisfied. This is nothing but breach of warranty. In the videos, we are going to discuss implied express conditions, express and implied warranties with many interesting examples and cases. Okay. At the beginning of the unit, I mentioned that payment of price and delivery. It's not very important. That can happen later also. But you will have to deliver the goods and pay the price at some point of time, right? The buyer will never want not to get the delivery. So what is delivery? We have discussed ownership up till now. But what is delivery? You have to deliver the goods sometime at least, right? Delivery is voluntary transfer of possession. The seller has voluntarily transferred possession to the buyer, that is delivery. What if the seller is not delivering the goods? Buyer got so angry that he went to the godown and he took 4 or 5 units and he went away. Can we say that the goods have been delivered? No. Why no? This is not voluntary transfer of possession. The seller has not voluntarily transferred goods to the buyer. So what is delivery? Delivery means there is a voluntary transfer of possession. The seller should voluntarily transfer possession to the buyer. Over here, we are only concerned with possession. Who has the goods? Who is holding the goods? We are not discussing ownership over here. Now, there are different types of deliveries. We have actual delivery, constructive delivery, and symbolic delivery. What is actual delivery? When the goods are actually physically handed over to the buyer. Physical is the key word. So when I actually physically give this pen to you, it means this is actual delivery. Then what is constructive? Constructive means that it has the effect of delivering goods to the buyer. There is no physical movement of goods, but it has the effect of transferring goods to the buyer. Let's say, for example, that seller sold goods to the buyer, but they are lying in the godown, in the warehouse of Z. So the seller informed Z that I have sold the goods to the buyer. He will come and take the delivery. Z calls up B. Are listen, B. I'm holding the goods for you, don't worry. Whenever you wish to come, just call me 1 hour in advance. I will keep the goods ready. As soon as Z gives acknowledgement, seller will say, oh, very good. According to me, the goods are now delivered. Why? Because the warehouse keeper or Z in this case who's holding the goods, he gives acknowledgement that don't worry, I am holding the goods for you. As soon as he gives acknowledgement, he is considered as agent of B. We become the agent of the person to whom the acknowledgement is given. So what will the seller think? For me, the goods may lie with B or with his agent. It is one and the same. So goods may be either with B or they may be with his agent. For me, it is as if the goods are delivered. So this is nothing but constructive delivery. The key word over here, students, is acknowledgement. So when the person who is in possession, in my example, who will that person be? Z. So when Z gives acknowledgement, the key word is acknowledgement. Whenever you see acknowledgement, the thing that should click is they are talking about constructive delivery. When he acknowledges to the buyer that he is holding the goods for him, this is nothing but constructive delivery. For the seller, it is as if the goods are delivered. Then we have symbolic delivery. Some symbol of possession is given, like keys. So let's say that over here, the seller sold goods to the buyer. Goods are lying in the warehouse of Z. The seller gave B the keys to Z's warehouse. He gave the keys. Keys are given. It is as if goods are given. This is symbolic delivery. So there is some symbol of real possession which is given by the seller to the buyer. The key word over here is some symbol of real possession. So symbol and real possession. So there are three types of deliveries. We have actual delivery, constructive delivery, and symbolic delivery. So symbol may include keys, documents, anything which symbolizes transfer of ownership. All good, but sometimes it may happen that the seller is not getting price, he's not getting paid for the goods. What are the rights available to an unpaid seller? That we will discuss in the unit unpaid seller. Now, unpaid seller is defined under section 45. So let us see the definition as to who can be called an unpaid seller. What are the rights of an unpaid seller? When whole of the price is not paid or tendered, then he is considered to be an unpaid seller. Now, what is the meaning of the word tender? Tender means offer. When whole of the price is not paid or even offered, then I am an unpaid seller. Now, let's say that X has sold goods to Y worth rupees 15,000. Okay, he is seller and Y is the buyer. If whole of the price has not been paid, what is the meaning of the word whole? Whole means either nothing is paid or part payment has been made, but we are not paying the remaining part. So let's say that X sold goods to Y. Y has not paid anything. X is unpaid. Y paid only 5,000 rupees. The whole price is not paid. X is unpaid. So whole means either nothing is paid or just part payment has been made. Unpaid seller also includes where a bill of exchange or other negotiable instruments like check has been received as conditional payment, but the same has been dishonored. Now, seller sold goods to the buyer. The buyer gave a check of 5,000, but that got dishonored. X is unpaid. It was received as conditional payment means it was received on the condition that I will consider myself to be paid only when the instrument is honored. Here the instrument is dishonored. So X remains unpaid. So unpaid seller means when the whole of the price is not paid, the buyer is not even offering to pay. I am unpaid. Where bill of exchange or other negotiable instrument has been received as conditional payment, but the same has been dishonored. I am unpaid. Let's discuss an example, students. X sold a television set to Y. Okay, he's X. He sold a television set to Y for 15,000 on credit period of 1 month. There is credit period of 1 month, all right? 1 month has not expired. Can we call X an unpaid seller? Answer in yes or no. I know I cannot hear you, but I can feel your answers. What do you think? 1 month has not expired. Is X unpaid? No, Y still has time to make the payment. No, he is not unpaid, not unpaid. So he is not an unpaid seller. Okay, 1 month has expired, but Y has not paid the money. Then can we call X as an unpaid seller? Yes, here he is unpaid. Y offered to pay, but X is refusing to accept the payment when tendered, when offered. Foolish X. So Y offered, but X says, no, not today, come tomorrow. Today is not a lucky day for me. Can X be considered as an unpaid seller? He's not unpaid. No, because Y offered, right? So does it mean that Y need not offer the money again? Yes, he need not offer, but he will have to pay for it. No. You cannot say, I offered, but you did not accept the money. Now I will not pay. That is not possible. So Y need not offer again, but he will have to pay money when X demands. All right. So here, X is not unpaid. He will not get the rights of an unpaid seller. What are the rights of an unpaid seller? See, unpaid seller has right against the goods as well as the buyer personally. When the unpaid seller is in possession of the goods, lucky fellow, the seller is in possession of the goods, he's unpaid. Do you really think he will deliver the goods? You pay, only then I will deliver the goods. Otherwise, I will keep the goods with me. So if the seller is in possession of the goods, he can exercise right against the goods. But what if seller delivered goods to the buyer? Okay, he delivered goods to the buyer and now he is unpaid. See, he can't call back the goods. He can't call the goods back. But he can definitely take action against the buyer personally. So when the seller is in possession of the goods, he can continue to remain in the possession. He can continue to retain the possession. He has right against the goods. But if he parts with the possession, the possession is with the buyer. You can't call back the goods, but you can definitely take action and recover money from the buyer. In case of goods, he can exercise the right of lian. Now, what is lian? Lian means to retain. He can continue to retain the goods. He can exercise the right of stoppage. Now, what is right of stoppage? Seller delivered goods to a carrier. Carrier means transporter, to be transported to the buyer. Goods are in transit. They have not reached the buyer, and the seller comes to know that the buyer has become insolvent. He will quickly call the carrier. Hey, listen, don't deliver the goods to the buyer. You bring it back. Buyer has become unpaid. I cannot allow the goods to reach him. He'll not pay money. You come back. So this right can be exercised of stopping the goods in transit and calling back the goods. We will deliver goods to the buyer only when he pays the price, because he has become insolvent. Right of resale. Now, I was in possession of the goods. I was waiting for the buyer to pay money. He's not paying money and the goods are perishable. I can't hold them for long. Even in case of non-perishable goods, I can't hold them and wait for the buyer to make payment. Market price will fall. No, I will not get the price that I deserve. Sell the goods. But give notice to the buyer, okay? You can sell the goods, but please give notice to the buyer. Give him an opportunity of paying money. Okay, just give him a reminder like, I am, if you don't pay, I will sell the goods. I am planning to sell the goods, last chance, pay the money. Even if he doesn't pay money in that case, then yes, you can resell, you can sell the goods. Then we have right against the buyer personally. Now we have delivered the goods to him. But yes, we can definitely file a case against him for price. We can sue him for damages if he refuses to accept the goods. Are you said you want the goods, I bought the delivery, now you're not accepting the goods. I'll have to sell it in the market and I got a less price for that. Now you pay me the difference, you pay me the loss, the damage which I suffer. Suit for interest or special damages, yes, if there's some agreement that you will now have to pay money along with interest, or special damages if the special circumstances were communicated to the buyer. You can also file a suit for damages for repudiation, that is cancellation of contract. So these are the rights available to the buyer, to the unpaid seller against the buyer personally. So students, this is an overall picture of what we are going to study in the Sale of Goods Act. The lectures are beautifully animated for you. Do visit my website theorymasterslearning.com for CA books and video lectures for CA Foundation and CA Interlaw. So students, this is all for today. We discussed something about the Sale of Goods Act. I hope you got a fair idea of what you will be studying in CA Foundation. In the next demo lecture, we will study the Companies Act. So before that, subscribe to your channel Theory Masters Learning and hit the bell icon so that you get notification for the next demo lecture.